For our final discussion today, a Nigerian investigative journalist, David Hundening, last week he released a report about British intelligence getting involved in Africa's social media conversation, right? So discussions that are going on within Africa, the British intelligence based on David Hundening, the British intelligence is monitoring our conversations on social media. And there anyone who is saying a narrative that is not consistent with what the British want Africans to know. They are using some African so-called journalists to fact check these people and brand them as, well, as you expect, Russia disinformation. So that's what has been going on. Three things I want to mention about this report from David Hundening. Number one, do you know what it means for the British intelligence to be their job, a certain group, right, in the MI6, one of their deliverables, their job description is to sit down and to monitor the conversations of Africans. They will come out tomorrow to tell you that you're not important. Tomorrow, they will come out to tell you that you're not important. If we are not important. If Africa is so inconsequential, what is the British intelligence doing monitoring our conversation on social media? You should leave we and our unimportant selves alone. But you are important. They tell you that you're not important so that you would see yourself less and expect nothing for yourself and for your country and have no aspirations, because the more useless and unimportant you feel, the more they can come in and do with you as they please and as they've been doing for centuries. There are some people right now in London that their job is to go to our social media platforms, look at what they are discussing in Nigeria. Oh, this is the major topic in Nigeria. Oh, this is what they are discussing. Kenya, this is what they are discussing. South Africa, this is what they are discussing. Ghana, this is what they are discussing. Egypt, this is what they are discussing. That's their job. Then anyone that is saying something that they don't want other Africans to know, they will use your own journalists with your own people and say to label those ones propaganda, Russian propaganda, Kremlin puppets, Putin stooge. That what else? Is that not really that's the oldest at this point. Russian propaganda should be another word for critical thinking. Because if you say that and you think and you come up with the truth, somehow that truth is labeled Russian propaganda. So anytime I hear people say Russian propaganda now, all I hear is critical thinking. That's what it is. Tomorrow they'll tell you you're not important. What? Tell me who, what can be the greatest proof of your importance if not this? If not this? That's the first thing I want to say. The second thing I want to discuss is this so-called fact checkers that the British intelligence is using to downplay critical thinkers within the African media space who are discussing things that the British don't want other Africans to know. These so-called journalists that are fact-checking and labeling their fellow Africans as Russian propagandists, how much are they paying them? Peanuts. Peanuts is how much they're being paid. Now, it's very possible that these journalists don't know that they're part of an intelligence effort. It's very likely they don't know. It's very, very likely they don't know that they're part of an intelligence effort. But you that just comes out to say, call something Russia propaganda or fact check something because you are being paid to fact check it, there should be you should now think that you yourself should know that you've sold out. And this is the same thing. Sometime last year, I heard the president of Burkina Faso make a statement, and he said back then colonization was able to happen. Slavery was able to happen because there were people within Africa who were willing to sell out their countries and their continents. And there's people. That's why it could happen. They could kill Thomas Sankara because there were people within Burkina Faso, people who were close to Thomas Sankara that were willing to sell him out to the outsiders. They were able to stifle Africa's economic growth because they had puppets in office, in power all across Africa that were willing to play with outsiders to the detriment of their respective countries. So these journalists are no different from those people who connived to kill Thomas Sankara with outsiders. They are no different from those people who connived with King Leopold to cut off the arms and the legs of their fellow Africans. They are not different from those other Africans who worked with the Europeans to sell their brothers and their sisters to slavery. They are no different. And they sold out for peanuts. They sold out for peanuts. They sold out for peanuts. And this is why you realize that poverty in Africa is an intentional thing. Because by the time you weaponize poverty, you can get hungry people to do anything. It takes a certain level of integrity that even if you are hungry, you say no and you stand up to do the right thing. It takes integrity. Integrity that not everybody has. Because tell me why they can pay an African journalist, I'm just throwing out a figure now, £300. What is £300? If you are, for example, in Nigeria today, 5 years ago, the value of pounds 5 years ago and the value of pounds today is not the same thing. Maybe that £300 today was probably like £2,000 5 years ago. Do you understand? So all these figures are even rubbish. They're nothing. They're nonsense. They're nonsense. Weaponization of poverty. You say you're a journalist, but you're being paid to take a certain narrative. You are being paid to say a certain thing. You're not a journalist. You're a parrot. That's what you are. You're a parrot. Paid to say something, paid to lie. One of the things that they were fact checking and were people who were speaking up against, say, foreign influence in African countries or even GMOs, genetically modified food that are coming in with full force in different African countries. They are labeling them Russian disinformation. Then the third thing I would say to round off this segment, because when I heard this story, it pained me. The strong point for me, the thing that kept recurring to me was just look at what poverty does. People sell out their country, their continent, a continent of billions of people sold out for £300. No shame. The third thing I will add is the world is changing. Maybe by now it should be the motto of this of this show. The world is changing, but the world is indeed changing, and the African way before is not the African way today. Whether or not you like it, African countries, some are doing it faster than others, right? Some others we really like them to accelerate. But Africa is pulling itself and beginning to take some positions that if we continue in this momentum in the next decade, many of these European countries they cannot they cannot keep doing this nonsense. Each time when I talk about things like this, I say these kind of things, would they pay a Chinese £300? Things like this cannot happen in China. So many times it can happen like this in Africa because of poverty. But that whole story of poverty is changing and is changing fast. I heard David Munde mention, which is something that made a lot of sense to me. He said, for example, Africa's role before now has been just a place for natural resources, for natural resource extraction. That's it. So Africa cannot have wild dreams to become industrialized. Those dreams are not for you. It's for the West. Your job is just to be a place where we collect raw materials and cheap labor. Children who can work in mines. The children will not work in mines in their country, but they will have children working. They will have children rather work in mines in Africa. So David Hunde said all of this is changing. Before now, Nigeria has always been exporting crude oil, crude oil, crude oil, crude oil. But for the first time since the creation of Nigeria, Nigeria is exporting finished oil. Petroleum is just, and not just processed or refined oil, but also refined complete petroleum products, finished petroleum goods. Nigeria is exporting with the Dangote refinery. Nigeria is exporting it now. In fact, there was a report from the OPEC, if I'm not mistaken, but I read it in one of these business publications of the West, maybe Bloomberg or something, or CNBC, but one of these business reports. I read it, sorry, business publications. I read it that Dangote refinery has cost Europe billions in oil, billions, because now we are not really buying from Europe. And the more things like this continue, the more Europe loses. But Europe is not my concern. My concern is Africa. I did not swear allegiance to Europe. My business is Africa. Do you get me? Now that we're talking about Dangote refinery, I just heard Tony Elumelu of um uh, what's this? Ooh, I'll put it on the screen. I've forgotten his energy group. But I just heard Tony Elumelu discuss. He's coming into um the energy sector. He's already playing the energy sector, but there are certain things they are doing. Also, they're coming in big. The same thing with Femi Otedola. So that Dangote fighting, and I hope he keeps fighting because he's still receiving a lot of pressure, right? But Dangote fighting to make sure that the refinery runs, not just run, but refinery supplies oil to the local market and to international market, is making it possible for these other businesses to spring up in the next 10 years. I bet that Nigeria is not going to be importing any form of oil, of energy. We will be self-sufficient in energy because Dangote is taking the hit for everybody. Let him continue. Do you understand? David Hunde also mentioned, and this thing, like I mentioned, this thing has not been seen in Nigeria's history ever. This is the first time. It continues like this. This is economic liberation for Nigeria. David Hunde also mentioned that Burkina Faso has been a place they'll just take gold and go. They'll come and take gold and go. But right now, for the first time ever, Burkina Faso is exporting refined gold. And this story is all across Africa. And the more, right now, it's going to be, this is the first step. So the first steps are usually quite difficult. But once we pick momentum, it will move across Africa like this. That era of coming to Africa to do this nonsense of weaponizing poverty in Africa is ended. I'm telling you. I am telling you, watch the tide. So right now, you'll be looking at it and say, oh, I'm not seeing anything. Yeah, I'm seeing it. I'm seeing it. See that era of, of kleptocracy is over. Mark my words, it's over. Right now, like I mentioned, right now it's looking like nothing is happening because the first steps are usually the most difficult ones. If you're watching a child learn to walk, right? When the child is learning to walk, those first steps are very difficult. The child will fall, stand up again. The child will fall, stand up again. Sometimes look as if with this child, is this child going to walk? But the more that child keeps at it, keeps trying to walk, the more that child keeps at it, pretty soon the child will start running. That's why I said with Africa, this is our first steps of economic liberation, of self-sufficiency. It's not going to be easy. It's not. But let us keep at it. We're going to win. Look at Ibrahim Traore of Burkina Faso just implemented something because right now he's moving fully into agriculture. And now he's bringing the prisoners in Burkina Faso. He's giving them deals that they should work in farms. They should work in farms, right? It's a good thing. We need to be self-sufficient with agriculture. The reason why Africa is reliant on food imports is because of some very wicked deals we signed with the World Trade Organization. We'll go into that topic later. I'll have a conversation with someone so that we can discuss all these Bretton Woods institutions, what they did to Africa. I want to have that conversation. But for now, I need you to understand that the reason Africa is so reliant on import with everything, food, cars, everything, it's because of some wicked treaties that we signed with the World Trade Organization. But all those institutions, all these things are breaking up. They are breaking up. Now there are rumors. I don't know if this is true. Okay, Donald Trump just pulled out of the World Health Organization. He said it's not funding. Nobody ever thought such a thing could happen. Now I'm hearing rumors that Donald Trump is going to pull off from the IMF and the World Bank. I don't know how true that is, but like I said, they are just rumors. But what I'm saying is that we are seeing things that people would never have ever thought possible. It's happening right in front of us. Right in front of us, it's happening and it's happening fast. So therefore, we need to understand that as those things are happening internationally, it's a cue for we in Africa to move with speed because this is the best time. Everything that we want to get done in Africa, this is the best time to get it done. This is the best time we can get it done. So let me know what you think about this whole British intelligence coming to monitor our conversation in Africa on social media, and also using the tried and trusted, even though now it's actually just stupid Russian disinformation tag. I think when they say Russian disinformation, at this point I look at it as critical thinking. Let me know what you think about all of this in the comment section below, and also the changes going on in the world, and even the changes going on in Africa. Share your thoughts with me in the comment section below. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to this channel, and share this video with everyone you hold dear, everyone you love, so that they can be aware of what is taking place in Africa and how they too can become a part of the change that we're experiencing here. And if you want to support the work that I'm doing here, I appreciate your support so far. Please use the Buy Me a Coffee link in the description, and it's also on the screen. And finally, if you want to join us in awakening Africans, you want to use media to awaken Africans of their geopolitical, economic, and political interest in the multipolar world, join me on Ukweli. The link is in the description. Join me in this African media movement so that we can transform the story of Africa together. Thank you so much for joining me in this episode of The Amanda Show. I'm back. I'm healthy. I feel fine. I'm sorry for the last few weeks that I couldn't make it. I wasn't feeling too well, but I'm feeling a lot better now. Thank you so much for joining me in this episode of The Amanda Show. I'll see you in the next episode. Bye bye.